I truly believe that it takes quite a bit of guts to talk on this topic because, well, often we're just seen as hysterical once we start, chatting amongst ourselves and airing our issues and having our moans and our groans. So I hope we can talk about the male's kind of viewpoints as well. But I want to start with Ashim, because you have some expertise in the VC field. Do you feel that we are structuring funds differently for female-led founders rather than male-led? Is there a bigger lean towards debt for females, for example, and venture for males? Do you see that split in your world?
Thanks, Suzanne, and happy to be here, everyone. I don't see the split in my world. I believe that the type of funding is so largely dependent on the business that the founder is building. What I do see, however, across sort of the ecosystem is that oftentimes female founders are building solutions in different sectors than oftentimes their male counterparts. So oftentimes that is in the healthcare space, that is in education, that could be even in the climate space. So oftentimes for some VC funds, those are just simply sectors that are outside of their purview. If you are a fintech-focused fund, you're not going to look at a healthcare founder simply because that's your mandate. But even if you're an agnostic fund, guess what? If you look at your portfolio, composition, you probably have a heavier leaning towards some of those, more sort of harder sectors like the fintech, the deep tech, and all of that, where oftentimes we do see less female representation.
Wow. So for me, I heard harder, less female. I don't know if you guys heard that. So it is so ingrained in our language in this space. The green space and the digital transformation space are two sectors that are specifically seen as being even more exclusionary to women, which seems counterintuitive because it seems like our nurturing kind of side could really be welcomed there. So I want to speak a little bit to Pumi, especially because you run a digital business. We don't see female representation in the same proportion in female business spaces like natural hair products, fashion, makeup, I can go on, that we see in board representation and political representation. Do you want to speak to your experience in that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm in the green space, which is fashion, so very female. However, when you do start to get into these boardroom spaces, obviously when the hierarchies haven't really shifted in any way whatsoever, yes, you do see like slight transformation when you are sitting, talking to board heads, but it's still fairly identical in my experience, especially when it comes to looking for like partners within the business or board members. It's still heavily male focused, but I am super excited and happy because my boards are generally female. And they do understand, and my advisors are all generally female. We do have a few male advisors, and it's so crazy on how they've allocated themselves as well, because you find that the males would deal with more like the techie parts, and the financial parts would generally be the females. And so it's just like, I don't know what it is, but they generally just allocate themselves to their own speciality. And I think that's fairly natural, right? So you're going to allocate yourself to whatever feels natural to you and whichever you are good at.
That leads us into like a very interesting space because we're saying, okay, there are natural differences. We naturally lean a certain way. We're naturally inclined a certain way. That's fabulous. Does anybody in the audience know who Michaela Blyde is? Yes? No? Where's our rugby player that was here? All right, Michaela Blyde is the best paid female rugby player in the world. She plays for New Zealand. She's American. She is a super sport superstar. And biomechanically and in terms of actual performance, she outperforms any male rugby player in the world. Now, we're sitting in South Africa. We're very proud about our rugby team. Why are we not good at putting out the stats of where women on an equal playing field are competing with men, and how we are different in our strengths and so on. So I was hoping that Thandeka could speak to that a little bit. What do you think the structural issues are that we need to break down so that we can have this competition where we can compete evenly without actually having to fight for it?
Yeah, I think that, in my opinion, when I think about this topic, I like to take a step back and think less about the specific outcomes like number of female entrepreneurs, etc., but think about it more from a human-centered position. And I think that the thing that I think we all need to be challenged more on is developing curiosity. I think that's the thing that's missing, is that we're so bogged down with our individual goals and, I need to meet this KPI, and in that we forget to connect with people as humans. Because once you connect with people as humans, then you get to understand their background, their unique strengths, and then therefore what value can they add to a team that's different from someone else, or what value can they add as a founder that's different from somebody else. And then second to that, I think that once we have success stories of women in leadership or female founders, we need to be telling more of those stories. One of the things that I was going to say is something that I wish we had more of is not just stats on diversity and inclusion on the continent, but actually case studies, insights around behavioral contributions, particularly as it relates to VC and tech. I found it really hard I could find all the stats around how much money has gone in, how has that grown over the years, how many businesses, but I really struggled to find research on related
stories
to South Africa in particular.
Yeah, so we're not actually able to learn from each other either, because we're not able to relate and see where women are going wrong and where they're doing well. I think that kind of transparency would be a huge boost, and we saw in the keynote speakers yesterday all presented that one slide from the big deal where you could see female ownership, female participation just is nosediving. And it's very interesting because if you read World Economic Forum, their report on the gap, the 2025 report says that we are bridging the gap in the education space. So they're saying that the gap in STEM is not really that, it's being bridged. They threw a stat out of 92%. I don't know if I agree with that, but they're saying, okay, we're bridging that. We're bridging training and knowledge, but we're not bridging political representation of women and board representation of women. And I'm hoping Lilemba will speak a little bit to what it would mean if we could get more female on fund boards and fund advisors, whether that would be powerful in breaking down this gap.
Absolutely. I think that the research is there, and the research is clear that when we have more female fund managers, there's more investment that goes into women entrepreneurs. Women fund managers are more likely to invest in female entrepreneurs up to 43% compared to their male counterparts at 1%. And if you add within the objectives of a male-led fund, the objective of needing to invest in female entrepreneurs, that moves from 1% to 14%. And so I think it's really important that we shift from just this being aspirational to some level of accountability. And I think that's where things like the diversity plays a big role, because it's not just about signing off to say we commit that we will do this. There is follow-up after that, like did you actually do it, and did you do what you promised, right? And so with more and more accountability, I think that we'll see an increase in investment in women. That graph was terrible. It almost feels like it's one step forward and 2 steps back in this space. Yeah, but so I think we just need to build on, because the data is there. There's no need to keep building this case, invest in women, invest in women. The data is there. It shows for every dollar you invest in a woman-led business, you're more likely to get your $2 out compared to $1 for a man, right? So the data is there. And now it's time to move from just, the talk to really being accountable and tracking.
Beautiful, I love that. So the digital pledge, if you haven't had a look at it, please look on the website, on the AfricArena website. It's its own tab, and the results are quite interesting. Out of the 45 VC and VC studio and investor types that signed the pledge, there was an increase, the average increase in investment in female-led or female-participated, or GLI as we call it, went from 17 to 35%. That is quite interesting, right? But then there was also unfortunate outcomes. 9 of those that pledged, there was absolutely no outcome, no positive, no movement, no moving the needle. So there's a mixed bag there as well, and that's why we can actually see why are we crashing off that horrible graph that is making us all cry. I'd like to sort of just pick, Ashim, if you have anything that was particular for you that stood out from the pledge results, that really resonated with you, something that you see there should be more of to increase GLI?
Yeah, absolutely, Suzanne. I think there's 2 things. One is that we need to always look at these results in a very nuanced way, because you've also got to think about how many investments did any of these fund managers actually make. If I made 2 investments that year, maybe one of them was into a female founder, maybe both of them were into a male founding team. Maybe it was into a diverse founding team. So I think we really have to look at the results very nuanced. If I made 10 investments and none of them went into a female founding team, maybe that's a different result than if I only made 2 investments, right? So I think it's always interesting to look at data, but then we've also sort of got to pull back the curtain and say, okay, well, what does the data really tell me? And how can we analyze this data so that it's not just a sort of blanket number, but we do have a little bit more detail around it. The second part, and I find that really key, is that, Lelemba spoke about accountability, and I couldn't agree more. We've got to be more accountable, or be held accountable with regards to where our investment dollars are going. Question is, who's going to hold us accountable? So if the LPs aren't holding us accountable into where the investment dollars are going, and if whoever is backing the LPs, whether it's the sovereign nations or other private capital funders, if the accountability doesn't start there, then it's very easy for fund managers to say, I don't have a vested interest right now, I don't really believe in all of this GLI thing. And yeah, even though the data is there, people still don't really want to buy into it. So we do need to, again, go back a step and say, are the LPs pledging in the same way? Do the LPs say, I need to invest in X amount of female fund managers? Do they say, I need to see that my underlying investment dollars by these funds that I'm investing in are in fact going into female-founded or female-led businesses? And only then can we really see more of that sort of change that we're hoping for.
So I love that. That to me really speaks to, you can have top-down accountability or you can have bottom-up accountability. And bottom-up very often is systemic, right? It's our actual society. It's how we speak to women's violence against women. It's it's really big, and something that possibly not a lot of us could break through when we're sitting in front of a panel judging us for a pitch. We might not be able to overcome all of that. So I'd like to actually ask Phumi, do you have advice for women and for, very importantly, for men to help us be accountable in this space, help speak out for women? Do you have advice in that space?
Yeah. So the men, particularly, the whole reason of that of the pledge is to be on the same playing field as our male counterparts. So and they are in these rooms that we are not, you know. And there is, yes, we speak about funding, but there's also support when it comes to partnerships, and support when it comes to every other resources that you have available to help these female-funded or founded startups accelerate. So yeah, there is the money factor, but what actually really moves the needle is having the ability to introduce that female-founded startup to your networks for them to accelerate operationally. So there is, yes, there's the money part, but if those males have got access into those networks, please introduce us and get us in there. And also be able to speak loud and proud about the businesses that we have, because if we can grow operationally, you probably find that we don't actually need that money, because we know how to handle, like, we know how to grow a business with very little money.
That's a great answer. That's like, it's so complex. We work mostly with investors, but we end up accidentally curating startups at Ulysses Tech, and we were preparing a startup to do a pitch. And I literally had to say to this girl, I hate that I have to say this to you, but you need to smile, and you need to sound interested in your own pitch, and you need to sound feminine. And I wasn't being sarcastic, and I was just saying, you know, to actually grab the attention of your investors. And because you're female, you're going to have to go that extra mile to get them to buy into your idea and to listen to you and to not hear the incorrect language that we don't want associated with women. It's, right? And this girl was like, and her co-founder was male, and I said to him, how do you feel about this? And he said, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted. Do you have any other advice for men? Can they shout in the streets for us that they are disgusted, or is there any other kind of, you know, useful ways that they can speak up for us?
Yeah, so I think that like the positioning really matters, and I guess as a woman in this space, as a fund manager who's also been raising, so I guess it's a different experience from a founder. But as a female fund manager, I also kind of go through the process of fundraising, interfacing mainly with LPs that are men, etc. And I think that the positioning sort of needs to change from being like, hey guys, please help us, oh my God, please stand up for us, shout on the corners, to be like, you're really compromising the long-term probability of success for your own business, for your culture, if you just ignore the talent that's around you.
There we go.
And I think basically the message needs to be, like I mentioned earlier, around if you're not intellectually curious, then, and you're not open-minded, you actually limit how successful your business or whatever you're working on can be. And so it's not I mean, if I guess if a man sees it as an inconvenience, it's actually a disadvantage for him. Because in the short term, maybe things are easier and he's just working with the homies and the bras. But then in the long term, he's sort of realizing that he's maybe not attracting a diverse set of customers or struggling to retain talent. So it is actually, to Lelemba's point, I think the case has been made of why diversity is strategically the right thing to do. And so, yeah, I think my advice for everyone, not just men, is like, listen more, be interested in people's stories, connect more at a human level.
Yeah.
Because then it feels less like, oh, I'm doing this because she's a woman. It's like, I'm doing this because this is the family she's from, or this is her story, this is the cool thing that she can add to our team. And I think that changes.
Actual understanding of the structural
dynamic.
problem. Yeah. Wow. So, Kino, I hope you heard that we're not killing you off all just yet. You're safe for now. We're not going to put you in a shallow grave. We want allies. And Thandeka, just I'm mindful of time. Do you want to just also add just maybe one thought about how men should actually be taking their position, their role in unstructuring this problem? Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's been many examples made here, but next time if we have a panel on diversity, it would be great to have men on it.
Agreed.
Yes, please.
This issue just doesn't impact women, and so women talking to women about it for the longest time makes it look like it's a one-sided issue. We're in this together. Your businesses become stronger with more diversity. Women make 80% of the buying decisions, and so if you're not thinking deliberately about your customer base and who's making those decisions, I think for the longer term, sustainability and profitability of your businesses, diversity matters. And so shifting these conversations. First of all, I'm happy that it's on the main stage, so well done to AfricArena. This conversation is usually a side stage conversation, but next time it would be great to have men speaking on this in a stage like this.
I love it. Thank you, ladies. I don't want to go over time.
I wanted to
Yes.
very quickly add something, and thanks very much for saying that, because I had a side conversation around that to say that, honestly, we can't have an all-female
Can we
panel
stop having
speaking
an echo
about
chamber?
gender diversity. It just doesn't work, right? I think secondly, we're really not looking for help. I don't think women are looking for help. I don't think they need help. I think women are fully able, smart, capable, and Lilemba has made the point about how businesses lose out long-term success. But I think in addition to that, we've also got to move away from trying to put the burden on the women. The burden is not on the women to change or to be different or to act different or to fit into a shape, right? I read something just recently, and it says, how the saying goes, a square peg in a round hole? So maybe the peg isn't the issue, right? Maybe the hole is the issue, and we need to change the hole. So I really... And this is to your point, Suzanne, about how a female founder should act. And I get it, right? Because of course, when you're more personable and you smile and you're, all of that, of course, the reaction may be better. But quite frankly, why does somebody have to change? If I am not that, I'm not that, and it is okay. It's okay not to have to be smiley. It's okay to be assertive, even if it can be misconstrued as aggressive. There are so many... I have a daughter who's 12 years old. 2 years ago in her school, her teachers told her that she is too assertive and that, yes, and this is a 10-year-old child, okay? I went back to the school and I said, I'm sorry. If this was a boy, you'd say they're a great leader. So please, can we reframe this, the conversation and the language and say, you're a great leader. Maybe you need to learn how to have other people also speak in the room, but you are not aggressive. You're not a bully. You're not this. You're simply a leader. So I think let's remove the burden from the women and actually ensure that, we just have that equitable conversation and playing field.
I think for me, the
us.
takeaway is really that curiosity that you picked up on. I think where we should take responsibility as female entrepreneurs is to have the curiosity to say, okay, what would the offer be if this was a male-led startup? And put your foot down and make a request for the same offer on the same terms, and kind of educate yourself of what are the deals that male-led startups are getting, and leverage that, and speak to that. So there's a part of it that's stepping into confidence, obviously precarious because of the societal norms, but we need to speak to a new confidence and hold accountable from bottom up too. So I think that's, very, very interesting. I just want to say to this panel again, this is such a complex topic and can't fit in this tiny 20 minutes. Do you feel we've got 5 minutes left, but we're also behind on the day's schedule. So do you feel there's any other element in the investment landscape that needs to fundamentally change for women to be able to step into that confidence space without it being precarious? Yes, go for it.
Yes, I do believe so. I think the investment space, finance in general, is a really tough space for women. I think, we still have the same stats like we had 15, 20 years ago, where at the junior level, we have, pretty much a 50-50, entry of women analysts, male analysts. You kind of have the same thing. And as you grow in your career and you grow through the ranks, it gets harder and harder to stay in that career, where maybe you have other responsibilities that come to you as well, whether that is aging parents, whether that is, child rearing and caring, other responsibilities in sort of society. And oftentimes the workplace, especially in the investment space, you're on the road many, many weeks a year. You are in late night meetings, early meetings, you're oftentimes just, in so many different directions stretched. And so I think if we really want to build a more equitable landscape, we do need to look at how we can be more flexible and more inclusive into ensuring that we don't lose the women on their path towards senior leadership, because we need to get more women into decision-making authority. But if they're dropping off at the mid-level, then we just have fewer and fewer women to select from. And so we've got to reframe the system and figure that out.
We graduate less and less women into that space.
I'd like to add on to that. And I think there really is no excuse for not having flexibility. We've got technology, right? I think if there's anything that COVID taught us is that we can still work and be productive from anywhere. And so encouraging policies, even within our fund structures, our fund teams, that can take into consideration the possibility of working from anywhere to allow for different family dynamics, different stages of life for women is important. So the excuses are off the table as well.
And to your point, that market share, that women are making those market decisions, those buying decisions, and they are the majority still there. So fascinating. Ladies, I'm going to round it off. I know we have 3 minutes on the clock, but I know it's a long day still ahead. I want to say to the audience, please reach out to these amazing women, continue these conversations. I hope that we're not having the same talk again next year, or I hope it's going to be all men talking about what they have done to change the situation next year. And I hope that the pledge outcomes are better next year, and certainly that horrible graph. We want to see some improvement. So be aware of your own contribution towards changing that. So ladies, well done. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And thank you so much for the audience for being patient with a very large, like nebula kind of topic and our small contributions to it. Thanks so much.